From the harbour lights of Carrick to the shores of far away, every heart beats Rangers, every soul will proudly say, we're the voices in the terraces, the hands that built the dream. Now the people own the Rangers, we're the lifeblood of the team. From Carrick to the mountains, to the cities around the globe, our colours fly together and the black and amber glows. We're the people's club forever, we'll sing it loud and true. Carrick Rangers owned by all, the best for me and you. From Belfast to New York, from Sydney to the Clyde, every fan's a family member standing shoulders side by side. No rich man owns our spirit, no king can buy our pride. We're 1,000 hearts united and the world's our stadium wide. From Carrick to the mountains, to the cities around the globe, our colours fly together and the black and amber glows. We're the people's club forever, we'll sing it loud and true. Carrick Rangers owned by all, the best for me and you. It's the roar of every corner, it's the drums in every land, it's the
Hey there. Hey, everybody. Welcome to People's Club podcast with myself, Chris, and with Andy today. We're real excited about today's show. We have two special guests on. Bit of a surprise for everybody because we're pre-recording this episode. We haven't put out a show card yet, so no one knows who the two guests are today. But we're really excited to have them. And in fact, Andy, how you been? I know you've been busy at work.
Yeah, no, definitely been doing really good. Getting excited about our trip in a couple weeks over to Carrickfergus, and I know we've been talking about some plans there. Should be a great time. But yeah, between work, music stuff, and the EA campaign we'll talk about a little bit. Definitely been keeping busy. How have you been doing?
I've been doing great. It's been hectic, and I'm getting ready for this trip, which is very nerve-wracking in itself. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to everything. So let's get to it. We're the official. We're not official with the club by any means, but we feel like we're the best information for Carrick Rangers F.C. Football. And so with that said, we're going to bring our first guest on tonight, Cheryl Brownlee. So she's with the Parliament legislation, big advocate of the club. How you doing, Cheryl?
Hi, guys. Doing really well. Lovely to be on. Lovely to meet you both.
Thank you. We're happy to have you on. I don't know if you know from past episodes, the podcast is a big fan of yours because of a couple of videos that came out a while back that we shared. And so we've been trying to get you on forever. Stephen, you got those videos to show? Stephen?
Carrick are taking on Cliftonville at Seaview tonight in the County Antrim Shield. I'm going to go around a few of my colleagues and get their predictions. Philip, Carrick or Cliftonville?
My money's on Carrick.
You! Right, Brian, Carrick or Cliftonville?
Well, of course I have an interest in Cliftonville being a North Belfast club, but I think on this stage occasion I will support the underdog in Carrick. I was very impressed by the feature on radio also this morning, so we'll be supporting Carrick tonight.
Woohoo! Carrick or Cliftonville?
Easy one, Carrick, 3-1. Ask me a difficult question, Cheryl.
Thanks. Carrick or Cliftonville?
Carrick.
Dromara Village.
What?
4 down.
Losers.
And then we have this video as well.
It should come as no surprise today that I rise to celebrate the fantastic achievements of Carrick Rangers, who proudly lifted the County Antrim Senior Shield last Tuesday at Cliftonville. After a phenomenal second half, the match finished 1-1 draw, taking us straight into penalties. And it was there that young Pengelly showed nerves of steel as Carrick Rangers won the shootout 4-2 against very, very, very worthy opponents in Cliftonville. Despite what my Facebook may have suggested, Carrick Rangers went into that match as the underdogs. There was a monumental victory. It was the first time in 33 years that the club had brought the shield home, and it is one that will live long in the memory of all supporters. As the shield was lifted, I looked around the ground at the roaring support, the loyal, the dedicated fans, and many had a wee tear in their eye. And I don't think any of us would be able to describe what that meant to us on the night. But that success didn't happen overnight. That is the years of hard work and dedication, from the players on the pitch to the coaching staff to the board, to the chairman as well, and all the volunteers who are the backbone of the club and are stick with Carrick Rangers through thick and thin and difficult times. But I was particularly struck watching the chairman, Peter Clark. He ran onto the pitch and he took sight of the packed out North Stand, and his face filled with pride and emotion. And it was in that moment you could see the weight of all the work, all the sacrifice and the passion that has gone into building the club and sustaining it. We know Carrick Rangers is much more than just a football club. It is a community, and one that now stretches far beyond the town of Carrickfergus and actually stretches as far as America, and we know that we have a phenomenal and growing fan base over there too. But it is also a night of reflection, and we remember those who are no longer with us, especially Davy, who would have loved nothing more than to be there front and centre and sharing that historic win. I'm immensely proud of Carrick Rangers and our Amber Army, and perhaps even prouder that I managed to convert a dedicated bluesman on the night. But football has always been more than just a result, and it was deeply moved by the moment a Cliftonville supporter came to the aid of a Carrick Rangers fan who became unwell. So, Mr. Speaker, I end on congratulating everybody associated with the club and, of course, the team for their hard work in achieving this monumental success. Carrickfergus is so proud of you, and up to the
Cheryl, we appreciate that. I mean, we're U.S. Investors. We haven't been around the club as long as you, but we can see the passion there. You know, we've already fallen in love with the club ourselves, but you know, you've been around through all the hard times and now the good times. And Andy, I think we need those videos for our EA campaign. So I didn't know if you've heard the past shows. Yeah. We're trying to get into the EA sports game, and that's probably a really good passionate speech there. So I was going to ask you, we got to see some of your colleagues in the first video. What got you involved? Is this where you're from? Did you play football growing up as well?
So I have lived in Carrickfergus my whole life. I'm 34. I actually went to primary school just around the corner in Victoria Primary, which is a stone's throw away from Taylor's Avenue. So I have been involved, I suppose, in the club maybe for the last 10, 15 years. And the reason for that is a gentleman, which you obviously never really got to meet, who was David Hilditch. He was the former MLA for East Antrim, and I worked for him. And it was through that relationship that I really got to love and got to know Carrick Rangers so much more. As a young girl, I always remember standing on the Horseshoe Bridge, and I'm not sure if you're completely familiar with that yet, but hopefully whenever you're over in the next few weeks, you'll see the Horseshoe Bridge. But you know what we would have done as children, we stood on the corner and we were able to look over and watch the match for free to avoid paying in. But now that's all kind of boarded up, so we don't get to do that as much. But you know, Carrick Rangers has always been something that I have been so passionate about from a young age. Most people that live in the town will have an affinity in some shape or form, and you know, particularly in the last few months, I suppose, it's been great to see Carrick Rangers achieve so many things, and particularly for those people that have stuck around for such a long time, you do really see the emotion and the passion in their faces whenever Carrick are achieving so many amazing things. I actually did play football a few years ago now, before I got involved in politics. I did play for Carrick girls team. I can't say I was great, but I did enjoy. I certainly enjoyed it. But anyone that lives in Carrick, it's something that they're so passionate about, and you want to support your local team as much as possible.
So you're a Falcon then. So growing up.
Well, there wasn't such a thing as the Carrick Falcons back then. It was Carrick ladies football team. But as I say, back then, girls and ladies football was just starting to grow. It wasn't as popular as it is now. There wouldn't have been that many women playing football actually. It wasn't the norm. Whereas it's great to see so many young girls and women involved in football to the point where actually more girls are playing it now than some other sports, and I think it's great. I think football is a wonderful sport, particularly for building team building, camaraderie, working together, but your physical fitness as well. And it's something I think is a great sport to be involved in.
Great, thank you. Well, we're gonna go ahead and give the viewers some behind the scenes political stuff now. Andy, you got a question you'd like to ask Cheryl?
Oh yeah, Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to get to talk to you. I'm a former political science major and everything, so I'm kind of eager when we're over to maybe see the Parliament building, even though probably be closed on the weekend and everything. But yeah, I was wondering. I know you have a lot of legislative duties, but to attend games often at Taylor's Name?
Well, I'm hoping actually whenever you guys are over, I'll be at the game on the Friday night. I think they're playing Linfield, isn't that right?
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll be down there. I try to get to games whenever I can. As I say, I have a young family as well. My daughter actually, she's 14 and isn't interested in football whatsoever. I do have a 5-year-old. He has severe learning challenges, so for us it's actually quite difficult to even get into the venue because just of the environment, it is quite hard for us, but we try to get as much as possible. Football is never really off in my house, to be quite honest with you. So if I'm not physically at the game, I'm able to listen to it or I'm able to watch it in some shape or form. So we always try to stay as updated as possible.
And I know that that county, you guys have been a real big part of the effort for the new stadium renderings. I know Peter Clark did some drawings. So how would you say the improvements are going to help the club and the town itself, the whole community, just the project?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so exciting. The stadia funding has been around now, I think, since maybe 2012. We've been talking about this. So it's actually moved so quickly in the past year or so, and a lot of that particular groundwork has been down to the likes of Peter Clark, and he has been really spearheading this for Carrick Rangers, and it's great that now obviously government has moved this, and Carrick are one of those successful teams that is progressing along with this funding. I have seen the designs. I'm really excited. Carrick Rangers, Taylor's Avenue is a place that needs significant investment. Peter and the team have done so much, probably with so little, to be honest. And now, if we're successful in moving this forward, it will be transformative, not just obviously for the first team, but for the academy. We have hundreds and hundreds of children involved in football. And then with, a new facility, this will allow the club to expand and provide more support and provide more, different things as well, which will be great for the club for all angles.
Excellent. And yeah, I know with a lot of the work you've been doing for constituency that you have a background as a firefighter as well. And also had Gary Scott, who's the head of the academy, on a few weeks ago. And I know he's a firefighter. He's not doing his duties with the academy. But definitely good to see. It seems like Carrick has a lot of good community involvement, volunteer work, and service. And kind of was wondering if there's anything you wanted to highlight. I guess the team's relations with Carrickfergus and how that's impacted. You mentioned the academy and the evolving Falcons team. But I know that Peter and Michael have been very involved in trying to grow that, along with your efforts in the assembly to help with the stadium funds.
Yeah, look, Carrick Rangers is really at
Is
the
there
heart
you'd like to maybe highlight about I see impact that Rangers have been having everyone, especially with the national investors are just starting to make our scene, but hopefully in a couple of weeks we can contribute to the local economy and everything is.
No, definitely. Look, I think, I suppose for you guys, you will come over and you will really see the impact that Carrick Rangers has on the town. And, look, from a footballing point of view, obviously, look, that is the core purpose of the club. But Carrick Rangers is so much more than that. It's really been woven into the fabric of the town, and it is one of the main anchor points that I look at in Carrickfergus. The first thing that you will see is obviously the castle, and then hopefully just a wee bit down the road, then you will be able to see Taylor's Avenue. It isn't just about the football, but with football it becomes your family, and those people then have supported the club for so long, that it really has an impact and that ripples out. The academy are an absolutely fantastic asset. When I'm saying there that there are 500 or 600 children involved, that means there's 500 or 600 families involved as well. And then you're dealing with those children from such a young age. You're building them up, their physical fitness, but also their mental resilience, which is hugely important. Then not only do the club do that, but they work with other organisations in the town. And Peter was telling me how they work with Kilcreggan Farm and help and encourage those service users to get involved in the club and allow them to come and see the football games as well. I know he also works with a number of the primary schools in the area, and they will have the likes of the Primary Schools Cup. So you're covering so many different bases. There's the YMCA, and again, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they will also facilitate the YMCA for a big community football match. So that's whenever local community organisations can come together, play football, people can come and watch. It's all a bit of a laugh. Nobody's a professional as well. And, we also have it's a biannual event, and it's called Learning Disability Pride, and it's really celebrating those with learning difficulties and challenges, and basically standing and saying, look, we're here, and we're proud of who we are. And it's a wonderful event to raise awareness, obviously, of learning disabilities, but to kind of, to walk with pride, to say, look, the world is different, and the world has so many different people that we should be proud of, and there should be no barriers. And Carrick Rangers as well facilitates that event. So it goes far beyond the football of the day. I mean, that, as I say, that's the core, but football is so much more than that. And I'm really proud of Peter and the work that the club has done. And I'm just really glad that you guys will now be a part of that. You'll be able to become involved and to see the different things that Carrick Rangers and obviously the town has. And I think you're going on a bit of a tour, so I don't want to spoil anything. But, there's really, really strong links between Carrickfergus and America. You have the US Rangers, that is the only, army formed outside of American soil. And that's took place in Carrickfergus, just around the corner from where you will be. You'll also have the Andrew Jackson Centre as well. And, of course, our famous castle and town walls. So there's so many things in such a small little town in such a small little place as Northern Ireland. So we're really, really, really privileged that you guys have taken an interest in us, and I hope that you will fall in love with the town just as much as I have, and hopefully we'll have a great relationship moving forward.
Cheryl, if you could take us behind the scenes, kind of educate us, because in the U.S., anytime there's government money spent on stadium refurbish or even a new stadium, it could go to vote. It could be controversial, like spend the money on roads or whatever else. And a lot of people don't think about how many new jobs it creates in the area when you do stuff like this. But Can you take us behind the scenes, like, because we know the investment is essential to the club, but what kind of challenges have you ran into with the community and the public on this?
Well, I suppose the stadia funding has been something that was delayed for quite a long time through various different challenges. Thankfully, that funding has now been unlocked and we're moving that forward. So now there's a process. The process is open, it's transparent, and the clubs now will move through that. As I say, at this stage, I hope there is no challenges. I hope that will be a very smooth process. To me, Carrick have put significant work in. They have a really credible case. They have the evidence there to back it up. And I'm fairly confident that they will move through that process well, and they deserve the investment. And I think, I'm biased. I'm an East Antrim representative. I'm a Carrick Rangers supporter, but and again, like all government, government projects, it's a competitive process, and it must be one that is transparent and accountable. But fingers crossed, it's moving the way we want it to move, and hopefully, we will see that on the ground in the not too distant future.
Andy?
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of the history, and that's definitely something I'm really excited to see. And yeah, the castle is a big draw for me for investing in the team. I had done a trip last summer to go to England, and went up to Wales and went to Conwy Castle there, and that right on the water, right next to the stadium, is going to be unreal to see. The Andrew Jackson Museum and the Rangers information. Is there anything else that you would recommend, historical wise or other, that I'm sure Peter and everyone has scheduled for us a lot of surprises to see, but is there anything else you'd recommend in the Carrickfergus community that we check out?
There's a beautiful church, and I really do hope that you get the chance to see it. It's called St. Nicholas's. It is stunning, and I know whenever I go on holiday, one of the things I love to see are beautiful churches. But definitely that is something that you should go and see, even if you only have 5 or 10 minutes. They are very, very accommodating to visitors. They have beautiful stained glass windows, and it's just so colorful, and it is a really traditional, beautiful space. I was actually there today, and I said to my colleague Mark, who hopefully you'll get to meet as well, he's a counsellor, I says, this is just unbelievable. We don't really, sometimes it's difficult when you live in an area to appreciate the incredible things you have. And that is a stunning, stunning building as well. So if you do get the chance to go down there, you might also get to see, we have jail cells, believe it or not. There's a section just beside the town hall. It's called the Hanging Gate. And then if you go into the left hand side, it used to be the old jail cells as well, which have recently been refurbished. So there's some good things to get a quick picture of, have a look, and go and see and read the history behind it. There's also a museum as well in the town centre. So a lot of these things are within quite easy walking distance. But hopefully I don't give away too much for your trip, but there's a lot that you'll be able to see. If anyone had a wee bit more time, there is this beautiful walk. It's called the Gobbins. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that. In Isle McGee. Again, it is a beautiful cliff edge walk. Really, really cool, actually. So yeah, and again, that's only 15-20 minutes away from Carrickfergus too.
Hey, Cheryl, there appears in the league to be a very big noticeable infrastructure and economic gap between some of the Premiership teams. What do you think should be a strategic plan maybe for the government to raise facility standards across the entire league, not just, I know some, like if Carrick qualifies for European football, we can't play a home game. Is there plans in the future?
Well, obviously we have the stadia funding. There's more funding actually out at the minute for pitch upgrades and stadia upgrades. So it's all about really working together strategically with the clubs to utilise the funding that's coming in, not just from central government, i.e. Stormont, but obviously Westminster and your local councils. And what I find is collaborative working in partnership together, maybe tying in with your local schools as well, because what we're seeing at the moment is it's not just about funding a football club. What else is involved? Are you tying in with your local area? How can they utilize the facilities? How can everybody benefit from this investment? So it's not just, for example, one football team. So of course, I think, looking forward, we need more investment in all our sporting facilities, not just for Premiership football, but also, whether it be, championship level, whether it be grassroots level, whether it be your primary school football. Everybody should have access to high quality facilities. And, we're in a day and age now where there isn't infinite money. There's so many priorities that government has, and so many pressures that government has, but it's how you utilize that funding, work together, and make sure whatever money is coming in is being put into the right place, but also is being used in the right way so it has the best and possible positive impact.
Andy, do you have anything else? Sorry, technical. I think there's a bit of a delay on Andy's mic sometimes here.
Exactly.
Can you hear us, Andy? There you go. Did you have another question?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm in the basement. I'm at the basement at work, so sorry it's through that.
Well, I think we lost
Cheryl.
Andy. He'll come back. Hey, Stephen, can you bring up our special guest, Harry Hamilton, while Andy gets everything situated? Hey, Harry, this is Andy and Chris and Cheryl. How you doing?
Hi, Cheryl. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you, Harry.
I feel like I only seen you this morning.
You did.
So my camera looks. You can join my pull out the back, and I've got back home. It looks nice at the back. Nice to see you guys. Good to be on. So obviously I've been listening to what you've been talking about, which is really nice to listen and talk about the town. Obviously with you guys coming over in a few weeks' time, it's quite good. You'll get to see a lot of things that you might not see elsewhere. So it's a nice little town, and obviously there's a lot of things going on there, especially for you guys to see. Like Cheryl said there, it's a pity you still have a little bit more time because there's a lot more to see. So obviously looking from that point of view. But no, just for me, obviously for the likes of Cheryl and stuff like that, what we got to remember in our little town, we rely on the likes of Cheryl, because she's out doing the work around the community. The amount of things that Cheryl does, especially in her own time, as well as doing the job that she does and going out and obviously meeting people, that keeps the community together. So I just wanted to give you a shout out there, Cheryl, just so people understand exactly how hard it can be in little towns and just to sort of keep that together. So it's quite nice that she's involved in the football as well. So it's nice to see that. And I think everybody just needs to keep that close together. Because one of the things, Cheryl, just a question, obviously for you, since the cup final, which we all attended, how do you feel it's kind of brought the town together a little bit?
Have you got me okay? Sorry.
Yeah, we're good.
Sorry, heard the question here. I still am not over the cup final. That was one of the best matches I've ever been at. And, I love football. I'm Glasgow Rangers is my, if I had to pick a, Scottish League team, that's definitely my team. But that there was the best match I've ever been at, and the emotion and crowds and the buzz, it's just undescribable. It really, really was. It was the best day that we've ever had. For me, I think, I think Carrick kept winning for a few games in a row, and it obviously clearly gave the team a big kick as well. I think it's just brought everybody together to think, actually, our wee team can achieve so much. And, I did mention it obviously in Stormont, but, Carrick is the underdog a lot of the time, and that's a difficult position to be in. And it's a difficult position sometimes, to maintain that level of support and that level of interest. And I think that's really reignited the passion behind everybody here in Carrickfergus, and obviously further in America as well. But there is a real support now and a real drive to support the team, and it's something that I'm really, really proud to see. And I think that night really reflected, and it shows me, just how passionate people are about Carrick, and the really dedicated supporters who have been there through thick and thin. And I mean that they have been there for a long time whenever Carrick didn't win, and they have stuck by every single match, and they have done everything possible to put the team where they are. So it's always kind of reflecting back and remembering those that have put the hard graft in during the times where that maybe wasn't as easy to do so. But I think it's moving forward now, Harry. I think Carrick have done an amazing job, and it's how we all support them and get behind the team and the manager and the board and everybody, and just keep moving it forward, and knowing that we're here to support them, and put our arms around them, and give them a wee bit of a kick and a bit of a criticism when they need it, because that's the joy of football. But that's what we're here to do, and we're all for Carrick, and that's the main thing.
And that's it. When I refer back to like yourself, obviously a few people know obviously the job that you do, Cheryl, but with you guys actually being able to get involved with it, especially when the job you do it, I think it's brilliant. Obviously, I've met some of your colleagues this week in various little meetings, but I think I went for a meeting with David, and I think probably 40 minutes of it was talking about football.
Yeah,
that's where the passion is. You can see the passion in Northern Ireland from the people, but it's like you say, people don't kind of put us on the map as a club. Everybody's talking about the bigger clubs in Belfast, and so it's actually nice, after that game, just to see that little bit of elevation, especially with Carrick and the town, and people think, well, actually, these guys are starting to play well. But like you say, sometimes you do have to give the criticism, but constructive criticism at the end of the day. Of
course.
Because that's like any football team around the world.
And that's the joy, of football. Of course, no matter how much you love a team, you'll get frustrated at them. My husband's a Liverpool supporter, and he absolutely would die for Liverpool. He loves them, but I mean, I have to listen to him whenever they're playing, and it doesn't sound that nice sometimes. But that's the fun, and that's the buzz in football, and that's why we love it. So, but I do think that Carrick have done a phenomenal job with what they have, and it's just about supporting them as much as possible, and pushing them right up the league and making sure they stay there, because they've done pretty incredible things with what they've got so far, and that should never be forgotten either.
Hey, Cheryl and Harry, this question is probably for the both of you, because I picked up earlier you mentioned the Scottish team and your husband's a Liverpool supporter. And we've heard in the past that you'll be more likely to see Rangers or Liverpool jersey there. How come we're not like just the top, that league is not top for Northern Ireland people? Like doesn't seem to be the following as does over in Scotland and England teams.
Well, I suppose, like people over in Northern Ireland will support a number of teams. You'll actually even find that some people will support Carrick Rangers, but they'll also support maybe Linfield as well. So you have kind of the flexibility where you can have an affinity and a love for a few different teams. The likes of the Premiership, it's a hard league to battle against. There is so much investment, there is so much popularity around it, and people are sometimes born within a family who, of course, look, that you're almost born into Liverpool supporters, and that's your affinity will be with them. But I think it's actually quite good that you can have a love for so many different teams, and that's what you see all the time, that whether it be Carrick, Liverpool, Rangers, there's a love for all of those teams. But I think again, it's trying to drive the league here forward too, and how we support that and how we kind of tailor it to make it, as sought after as the others.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, on that side, it's like Cheryl says, people do have a following of different teams. Obviously, I'm the same with the Rangers side. You kind of grow up with that. But I've had a close affiliation where I've gone to a lot of Aberdeen games in Scotland, just because obviously people I've known there. But obviously, I live quite close to Hull City in England, so I've kind of followed those quite often. And then the other club quite close to me is Doncaster Rovers, because my wife supports them. She supported them until she was 10 years old. And with them having Grant McCann, the ex-Northern Ireland player, that's quite nice to go and watch. So, yes, it's different levels, but it's all about the football. In the past sort of week and a half, I've been to about 7 games around Europe. So for me, I love going to watch football. So that's kind of the passion. But like Cheryl says, you kind of brought up, you're either a Linfield, Glentoran, that sort of thing, because with Carrick being such a small club, people always had that affiliation with the Belfast club as well. So it's kind of just how it's gone.
Andy, it looks like you switched over to your phone. You want to go ahead and ask your question now?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulty, but I guess for also Harry, nice to meet you as well. But for Cheryl and for Harry, your perspective on that, do you feel like locally it is growing with more interest in Carrick Rangers now, especially, I know we have a lot in the future. There's a new HTN TV network that the team invested in, all the items the assembly is helping promote for the future, but it seems like there's a kind of a growing base that's starting to build even further right now. Is that kind of what you're seeing there too as well?
Yeah, definitely. From my point of view, you look at the game I went to on Tuesday night. If I go back, even 6-7 months, you would have got a Tuesday night game. You wouldn't have seen that many fans at a Tuesday night game. I was, for me, I haven't been to a Tuesday night game apart from the final in a long time. But to see, obviously, the fans turning up and obviously shouting and singing, it was really, really nice to see. So you kind of see that building up. And then with NIFL putting it on TV, we've got NIFL TV now. So the game was on. And then the game, obviously, you guys are coming from America's on television again. I asked my guys in England to tune in to watch it, which they did. And they quite liked the game the other night. That we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's kind of shows because you got, people can see the level of football, how they're kind of playing. But other than that, people don't get to see that, outside of that Carrick region or outside of you guys in the US. So sometimes it's nice to push that out to Europe as well. So we're kind of seeing that building up. But I think it's great for the club because, at least them guys can kind of see, we're putting these efforts in. What's the return going to be on it?
Cheryl, we appreciate you being on with us tonight. I know, thanks for juggling your schedule. I'm going to have one more thing for you as you go out. We got 2,124 global investors now. A lot of them are U.S. based. I know you've given us some recommendations when you come into town, but before you go, if you could say anything to the audience, what would be one thing you'd like to communicate to all of us?
I just want to say genuinely a huge thank you. I hope that you all feel the same way about Carrick Rangers that I feel about Carrick Rangers, and I hope whenever you're coming over in the next few weeks, you'll see just how beautiful Northern Ireland is, and of course Carrickfergus. It's great to start building these relationships with you all, and I hope this is just the start, and it's something that we can take much further. And the uniqueness about Carrick Rangers is you're really a part of it. You wouldn't get that same connection with a much larger club. So this is something really unique and really special, and I just can't wait to see it grow. So hopefully I'll get to meet some of you in the next few weeks, and fingers crossed, this is just the start.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming on. We hope in the future you can come on again as more legislation's going through and the government is helping funding the clubs. And I'd welcome you to stay on, but we're going to talk about, the depressing loss Tuesday. And then we're going to talk about our EA sports campaign. If there's anything the government can do to get us in the EA video game, get Carrick Rangers in there, all means knock yourself out. Please help us.
No problem at all. Like, thank you so much.
We'll catch up, Cheryl, on that. I'll fill you in a little bit more once I've got to the next bit.
Dead
next
on.
stage with
Right.
it. So
No
I'll speak
worries.
soon.
Look, I appreciate it all. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was Cheryl Brownlee. We really appreciate her joining us. And now we have proper introduction here. Harry Hamilton is now joining the show as our second guest tonight. Harry was heading up, as I've talked about on the show many times, the EA Sports campaign. He is the contact Michael gave me. He introduced us. He's got friends with EA. It's an awful lot to put on his shoulders, a lot of pressure for everybody listening, but hopefully he can get it done. I think he's got a pretty good sales aspect in him from just texting with him. So we appreciate you coming on tonight, Harry. And also you had the privilege of being at the game in person, whereas a lot of us couldn't even see it unless you paid for a subscription to the BBC subscription. A lot of us don't have that. So we're going to lean on you. We don't, the club did not put a bunch of highlights out, but we do have a little bit of a highlight, and then we're going to get into the game with you. Stephen, can you show the one highlight we have? I think this is actually maybe from Saturday's game.
Yeah, Saturday night.
That's all we got, courtesy of the fan zone, because we don't have any update highlights. I know Andy does a lot of write-ups, so he can help us. But Harry, if you could go over what you saw on Tuesday when you were at the game.
Yeah, well, if I look at it from obviously the point of view, straight away, obviously Stephen's gone very defensive, because if you look at the Glentoran team, they're a team of full-time players. Even looking at their bench, you wouldn't mind having a few of them on your team. You look at the quality of which Glentoran possess, and as a full-time team, you expect that. You expect to go out. You're going to have to be defensive very, very quickly. But if I analyze the first 20 minutes, we didn't even get into their half. That was very, very difficult. But we had to manage the game. You look at the sort of areas that we get into. We couldn't push up past them. They kept pushing and pushing. They came out of the blocks just possessed, and they were wanting to push forward. All they wanted was that early goal. But the guys at the back, the likes of McCulloch, really, really controlled it well. There's a few times, obviously, it was headers. It was obviously getting in with the ball, and then obviously going into the game a little bit further. Obviously, Gartside had that double save. I was right behind that goal, so I could see how quick he had to get down to make that. But that kind of changed the game a little bit from Glentoran's perspective, because you could see the little bit of frustration there. And obviously they were trying their best to get back into the game. There was a couple of obviously matchups with a couple of players, Heatley being one of them. And because you guys didn't get to see the highlights, Heatley was, constantly battling with their midfielder. But it was a really, really good battle. Eventually they both got a yellow card. But that's the sort of passion you want to see from the players. They're up against a massive full-time team. They just want to, push and push. And if I look at sort of as the game went on, we had a couple of times where we kind of got into their half. We could have obviously got the ball in the box. We could have pushed. But then you go on to what Glentoran done. The Glentoran hit the woodwork 3 times. So we got let off there straight away with that. And then obviously coming to half-time, we're going in 0-0. You kind of think to yourself, right, we have a bit of a chance here. We can hold this up. We can kind of get a point here. Just try our best just to keep going. And all the way up, as I looked through the second half, there was a couple of yellow cards, there was a couple of one-on-ones that we just couldn't get through. But, keeper pulled off another couple of great saves. And obviously, Ethan had a fantastic game until we had that opportunity with the corner. And the corner's come in, the keeper's dropped it, it's gone in the net. But I've looked at some of the replays, close-up replays, and the keeper was impeded. When you look back to the replays in real time, very, very difficult to see. But when you see obviously a close up and a slow motion, the keeper was impeded, but the referee hasn't seen it. So unfortunately, there's nothing you can do that in gameplay. There's this talk. I'll revert into this a little bit. There's this talk. Obviously, I don't know if you guys know about it in the US. They're talking about bringing VAR into the Irish Cup final.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that'll be something that's rolled out, but I think it has its good points and its bad points. That's kind of one of those. But to sum up, if I go into the game, don't mind you asking me some questions about the game and what I thought. But just to give that sort of quick summary, I look at the difference between Glentoran and Carrick. The financial gap is absolutely massive. But we held them up until about 80 minutes. I wouldn't say we've gone toe-to-toe with them. We've managed the game. Stevens managed the game properly, told the players where they need to be. When some players, that had been out for a couple of games and they've come back and they're obviously getting back into it. I think the one player we definitely missed was Adam Leckie, because you needed that aerial presence. When we had the couple of corners, you have that little bit of extra aerial presence in there, you have a chance. He's quite good on the loose balls. So if anything's dropping, he's getting onto the ball. So we kind of missed him because obviously of his red card and sending off. So obviously with him banned, but there's not so much you can do that. You have to try and go with what you've got. But the positive to take from it is, they're pushing to try and get to the top of the league. If we go back 5-6 games ago, we were right down there, before the cup final. But now, look at the position we're in now. We could be pushing on to Europe. I remember sitting having this conversation with Michael and said, the way the team's playing now, if they continue to play like that, we will be pushing for Europe. And that's kind of how we're trying to do that. That was a game. It would have been great to get a point. And even Stephen was saying, it would have been great to get a point from that. But he couldn't fault the team like I couldn't at the end. There could have been a few little bits where they had a bit more chances. But overall, it was a very, very difficult game. And, it was just an unlucky goal. Just one of those, if it was just another night, it could have went the other way. So from that point of view, that's kind of a little bit of a summary. But if you guys want to ask any questions on the game, I'm quite happy to answer them.
Sure. Andy, I know you saw Saturday's game. You probably, like me, didn't really get to see Tuesday's. I know you do some write-ups too. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so kind of a tough break for Gartside a little bit with the goal that got given up. But, again, I'm just impressed that he's even come back from a rough injury. And, he's done a tremendous job, especially through the unbeaten streak that we had, which was really good. But also, just to mention too, Billy Joe Burns had I think a hip injury that Stephen Baxter said that, he wasn't at 100% to be competing against, a very strong side as was mentioned. And then Kyle Cherry also had a hamstring injury. So, a rough game definitely puts us against the wall, and we're going to need some help to stay in sixth place. But compared to where we're in a far better place. And the good thing now is we have a little bit of a window too, where there's a break. So hopefully the team can rest up a little bit and get a little bit better.
Have a week break so for what Stephen was saying is going to be, they have until next week. They'll be back training next Tuesday. So that kind of gives them a good bit of recovery. Because sometimes as a footballer, people think it's all great, but they remember the part-time footballers, they still have own jobs, which they have to do every single day. So having that little bit of break and recovery time, I'm sure some of them will be down doing some physio anyway, down at the gym, down at the club, just to keep themselves obviously fit and going. The likes of Danny Gibbs and stuff like that, he's always working out. He's always in the gym. So these guys, the professionals at the end of the day, they will keep themselves fit. Just because they've got a week off, it doesn't mean they're all going to go out and do nothing, sit at home or go to the spa. I know these guys will be out training or out running or down the gym because the facility's there for them to do it. So that when you think they've got a week off, they will still be obviously keeping themselves going because they'll know that. But I guarantee you, some of these guys, they've got a week off, they'll be chomping at the bit to get back playing again. Because when you're used to it week in, week out, you want to keep going and you want to keep playing. So I think from Stephen's point of view, he'll be glad that they have a bit of a week off because obviously people can start to get back and he can go, right, okay, what other availability have I got now? So from his point of view, it's good.
Yeah, we had been in really good form lately, and this kind of reminds me back earlier in the season where we were having a lot of injury problems and we were struggling with people out. You still got the Lackey suspension, so we're not going to see him until the split happens. And then Matthew Olasonde's got the hamstring; he's battling, and so my guy Joe Crow, I've been telling you about how he plays such a big role with this club. He's a physical presence and a disruptor for them, and they've really missed him. And they miss Olasonde for the depth they have. So you just hope we stay healthy. I get nervous if a Mikey place were to go down, all of a sudden he's healing, and you got, if Burns is hurting, it's just one of those things. Injuries are part of the game, but you don't want to make excuses, and Steven really doesn't, but it is there. So we have that issue right now. So hopefully we can get healthy during this, especially when we go there for the last game of the season. I really want to see full squad if possible, besides the Lackey suspension. So
yeah, it is difficult, when you get these injuries, especially when the size of the club. You look at like Glentoran, and they've got a bench that could easily come on and play in any first team. That's where the big difference is. If you can do that, then it's okay. But unfortunately, Carrick can't just rely on that. So we got to hope that these players are fit. I refer back to last season when we ended up playing Anna in the playoffs. That was one of the first games that I seen a full strength squad. So every other time there wasn't a full strength squad. So to coming back to that, and it was such an important game, winning the first one by so many goals, and obviously into the second one we won that as well. But the thing is, if you had them same injuries through the season, it could have been a different, kettle of fish. But you look at this season, I look at some of the, the results, from that 4-1 from Cliftonville, we just pushed on. Yes, the Coleraine Cup game is the only one really that was an issue, because obviously that went the extra time. We were just unlucky on that one. But the win at Larne, the 1-1 at Coleraine, obviously Glenavon, Dungannon 5-1, and obviously the Portadown, and obviously Bangor was 1-1 at the weekend, but obviously the Bangor before was 3-2. So games like that, you're getting goals. If I refer back to, before that, when there was the injury problems, we weren't scoring many goals. Now, obviously, we're getting chances. Yes, we're still conceding a few goals, but they're pushing up. They're getting chances. They're more attacking. People are playing. Danny's playing in a better role, I think. Obviously, Stephen may say otherwise, but from my point of view, I like Danny playing through the middle. And I'm sure he probably prefers it himself, if he was to say. But that's where his natural position is. He latches on the balls very, very quickly. If I look at the weekend game, obviously, if you guys seen the weekend, with the one-on-one he had with the keeper, there was no way that was a foul. He should have been getting his goal there, straight away. But that's kind of, sometimes you get the rub of the green, sometimes you don't. But you're in that correct position. Whereas when he was playing on the wing, it was a lot more difficult for him to be in the middle, to be in those positions. So you kind of see that as you get the players knitted together, like I say, as long as we don't get the likes of Place and people like that where they end up injured, we can continue doing that and continue getting the wins.
Yeah, so let me ask you both. That's something I'll bring up, because I know a few interviews back with Steven, he mentioned that same thing you did about the depth, how some of these other clubs that are bigger have more depth. So in the off season, we're going to have, a lot of people are going to be out of contract. We're going to have I think only 7 players under contract. So I'm sure they'll re-sign some of the same players. But I was thinking, if we're going to have this challenge of roster depth, that we need to take a money ball approach, kind of. Harry, I'm sure you're familiar with that in the U.S., the money ball approach, about where the way we spend our budget to get a little bit deeper and to find players that do fit the system Steven has. They may not be these high level players, but they fit his system. Just what you and Andy's thoughts are on the future of the club. It looks like we've made a lot of improvements.
I think from my point of view, you're right there. It's not just about, bringing a player in that, costs lots of money. You can have if I look at Adam, for instance, when he was at Crusaders, he played there for, a number of years, but he's come in and he's fitted into the squad. That's the sort of player you want to come in. You're not going out and you're trying to get, a top level player that's at that point in the career, they're coming from the south of Ireland, they're coming from England. You're looking at where they fit in. And I think that's some of the things, Stephen's been around long enough, likes of Michael, likes of Peter, they've been in this game long enough to know, right, we need to look at this specific type of player. And the same as the team, you look at the team of directors within Carrick, they've got all the experience, from the Fulham youth team all the way through. I look at Adrian, obviously down in the youth side. He knows the players are coming through. Jody knows the players that are coming through. These guys can look at and say, right, okay, we've got a couple of these players within our own academy. We need to give these guys a chance because I think these will fit in. But that's where, obviously, Stephen has to take their word for it and integrate them into the team and give them a chance. But then you've got other outside of it I look at as well. So say someone in the Carrick Academy has gone to play for likes of Crusaders, Glentoran, Coleraine, but they've gone there, they've kind of not fitted their system. But there's an opportunity to bring them back to Carrick to fit because they fit in that system. I think there's always those sort of ways that we got to constantly look at because they still got the connection with these players. Let's look at bringing some of them back to fill the gaps that we need. But then at least they're getting some game time, whereas they're obviously not even sitting on the bench in some areas. They've gone to these clubs, obviously, because they thought it was a better opportunity, but sometimes it doesn't work. Come back where you're welcome. And that's what I always say with that sort of side of it.
Yeah. Andy, what do you think? I know you and I have had conversations about we'd like to see the club get younger, especially when you start getting soft tissue injuries with 38-year-old players, 34-year-old players. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I was very happy with some of the work that they did during the transfer window in January that I think, to Harry's point to a degree too, of, this does open some avenues for some of our players in the under-20 team that I know we talked with Jody Hill on the show about that have a lot of promise. Cody James, who, since I switched to my phone, my jersey on the wall is not showing anymore, but I'm a big fan of him. And also pleased to mention that a lot of the under-20 games have been on the Plus Fan platform to watch. So I think we have a lot of really good up-and-coming players that I think are due for more of an opportunity. But I think we really give a showcase for maybe a Glentoran because they are so seasoned. Maybe there's not a spot for that playing time that this allows us to offer players. And then particularly, I know, Chris, you're a big fan of Olasunde coming into the program. And, this is where there's really an opportunity to showcase some of those players that maybe are looking to have a step up into, maybe some of the Scotland's or some of the English pyramid. And this really gives them an opportunity to come into Carrick, get a lot of playing time and showcase that to the next level while building us as well.
Yeah. We're starting to run up against it a little bit here, getting near the end. So let me get to the big reason we have Harry on here, besides his expertise, and we really appreciate you sharing, since we didn't get to watch the game, and a lot of the fans here in the U.S. didn't get to see things. We're kind of watching out a stat data center usually to get what's going on. But just like I said, you were introduced to me through Michael, and can you explain? We got Andy on here who's actually writing the case study. And he's got the final draft done. So I'm going to be sending you that after we go over that this week. And I have some more emails to send you too. So sorry for blowing up your inbox there, but I'm trying to get as many numbers.
I've got an inbox for it, so it's no problem.
And if you look at the bottom, there is the email, crfcineafc@gmail.com. This is open to all Carrickfergus people as well, the fans. This isn't just an owner-investor thing. It's for both. Send your email why we should be in the video game, and that's going to lead over to you, Harry. What do you think do you think our chances are realistic of this happening?
I think our chances are very, very good. Obviously, I can't go into who my contacts and stuff like that, but I will be able to once we get to that point, because obviously they're doing that. Like I've said, I've met them a couple of times over the past few weeks, but our chances are very, very good because each year they do encourage a club outside of the norm to try and come in, give us a reason why you should be doing this. And one of the big reasons that I put forward was you guys, the fan base in the US. How many clubs in Northern Ireland have that fan base outside? So obviously some of the case studies I've written that you read, that you guys have sent across, brilliant, because it just shows the passion that you guys have to want to be involved in a little club in Northern Ireland and have this club put on a video game. The other thing is I say to, the local fans, all the guys in Carrick, which, I know a lot of people there, is guys, send it to the email as well. If you guys are watching this and you want to get involved too, it's not just about, obviously, the American side. It's about you get a local fans in Carrick as well. Get involved with it, get it through. But our chances are very, very good. I've got another couple of trips to the US coming up very, very soon. So once this full case study is done, I will be obviously presenting this and sending it across. There's a few other things I've got to do in the background, which obviously I'll speak to Chris Andy, I'm sure I'll speak to you outside, and I'll have another chat with Michael and Peter. There's a few other things we need to do just to obviously get that over the line and get it pushed through. But that's here and there. But the big thing is you fans. You are the voice of how this can be done. We have enough people give that voice, we will be in that game come next season. And it'd be just amazing. And I'm sure the players will be over the moon to see themselves on a game. It's not just about the fans. Them players will want to be in it. So, that's one of the things when you guys are over there in a couple of weeks' time. I'm sure, Chris, hopefully we'll see each other before then. Have that conversation with the guys when you're over there as well. If you're meeting some of the players, have a conversation. Hopefully some of the players watch this. The guys that I think, the likes of Danny, the likes of Paul, Kyle, people like that, if you guys are watching this, just please send me an email or send me a message. Some of you have obviously got on Facebook anyway, so you can just drop me a PM. So, but I think coming from the players also, as well as the fans, you fans in America, I think it'd be really, really good to see your opinion. But then if you, as a player, you say, I don't want to be in that game, then don't buy it then. You don't want to see your face in that game, then don't buy the game. But no, I think from that point of view, I think it'd be really, really good. I'll do my best to sell it to them. That's kind of what I'm quite good at doing. But I think it all comes down to you guys. It's not just about me. Yes, I've got the connection, but it's about what you guys put in. And obviously, Andy, if you're working on the final draft of it, it'd be really, really good to see.
So Harry, I know you're not like an owner investor, but you are a fan. You're from that area there, yeah. So you've grown up, with a passion for this team, been there a lot longer than we have. But go ahead and just tell us a little bit about your background. I know you own a couple clubs. I think one's an under 23 team. If you want to plug those and go ahead and tell us who they are so we can start.
Yeah, so obviously I've got, we've intertwined. So I grew up with Carrickfergus. That's kind of my background. I've gone I joined the Navy, actually. I played football in Germany for a little bit. Unfortunately, I got injured. So that wasn't really, I tried my best to try and do it, but unfortunately that didn't work out. That's kind of how it goes. And I joined the forces. I worked there for quite a bit as an engineering officer, worked my way through and decided to obviously come more into the engineering business. Hydraulic systems, things like that. So I worked all over the world doing that. And obviously I had various companies up and down, and I'll go into every single one of them. But my club in England, I've got a club called Goal Athletic in England, where we've kind of, we had multiple teams. We have a charity team all the way through to teams that play in a higher league. So we're kind of trying to make a football club, which is for everybody. I'll actually show you one of the shirts in a second here. So if anybody wants to follow it, the team's called Goal Athletic. This is actually our new shirt here. You'll see it on here, which I don't know if you guys can see that on there, if it'll show you. So that's I don't know whether it's actually working properly. So that's the badge there. You can see on there. I'll have to send you a picture of it because the camera's just not picking it up properly. So that's our actual new shirt. So what I did with the shirt, it's a little town in Goole in East Yorkshire. So I've actually made the shirt where, because they're an old mining town, we've done the shirt where it shows the old mining water tower to intertwine to give it a bit of a local feel so people can get involved. Like this weekend on Sunday, we play a charity game, which we're raising funds for charity every single week. Last week we did for teenage cancer. This week it's for a charity called Life for a Kid. So if anybody wants to follow that as well, they're a local charity that raise money for kids and families that can't afford to buy like wheelchairs or anything for disability, where the government won't obviously fund it or help for it. So it's really, really good, and it's run by a bunch of guys. We have a football league called the MIA, which we run, which is a charity league, and each team plays against it. All that league's about is about raising money for charity. It's about guys of all abilities going out to be able to just have a bit of a run around. Every bit. I played a few games myself, and I'm 40 odd years old with a bit of a belly now, but I can still run a little bit. I can still hit the ball. So it's good from that point of view, but it's like, and then there's another part we get involved with the Andy's Man's Club, which is a mental health charity. So we kind of like to do that as well. So we'll get involved as much as we can. And then hopefully later this year in the summer, I'm hoping to bring my team over to Northern Ireland to play some teams in Northern Ireland. So that's one of the other things I want to try and do. Whether Peter and Michael might let me play Carrick, we never know. I have to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Well, I appreciate you doing all the heavy lifting, Harry and Andy, yourself with the case study. I've been just a facilitator and trying to drive this bus. But Andy, do you have any parting words for Harry?
Yeah, no, Harry. Definitely pleasure to meet you. I think we'll be in touch a little bit more as get the case study done, but we're wrapping that up. So I'm sure Chris and I will be in touch on that. Otherwise, we'll do the best we can to try to get this over the line. And for me, the whole reason I'm here is that years ago I started playing the same series then known as FIFA, probably about '98, and here we are today. So hopefully, this instills a lot more generations of Carrick Rangers fans in the future. And, for us all too, then on a weekly basis, we can move the sliders around and, get a few hat tricks for Adam Lucky each game and everything. So looking forward to it. But also likewise, looking forward to see you guys overseas pretty soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
It'd be great to see that.
Yeah.
So, and I appreciate obviously you guys coming in and helping and pushing this, because seeing a local club where I grew up to be able to potentially get on a game like this, getting the backing from you guys is great as well. And that's what we need, But like I say, anybody, you two, Chris, Andy, anybody wants to reach out to me as well, I'm on Instagram. Obviously, I'm on Facebook as well. I don't mind, obviously, people reaching out to me. Obviously, when the guys, obviously, at the final, we had 4 Americans came over then. I spent a bit of time with the guys. We went up the North Coast. So getting to know people from the US. So I took them up to see Giants Causeway, some of the things that came out to the pub with me. So to actually get to do that with some of you guys and see your opinions and how you kind of feel was brilliant, because that's what it's all about, and keeping that local connection. Because I think you guys connecting with the guys locally is great as well, because you get a relationship with people that support the club that you guys are invested in. Is just amazing.
Well, Harry, we hope to run into you up there and share a pint with you. Hopefully you can make it out to when we're at the Owner Summit and come visit with some of us when we're up there. And we really appreciate you being on and everything you're doing with this campaign, and just supporting the club and everything. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to keep living vicariously through you. I watch your Facebook and all the games you get to go to, just reading over the PSG game, and it's like you're at this place. I always check your Facebook now. So you're the lucky guy.
I'm quite lucky and privileged that way. That's one of the things, and I say I don't take that for granted that I get to do that quite often. So it's actually quite nice.
Well, very, very good. Yeah, Andy and I will keep fighting for tickets and lottos and hope we get in.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see you at a game in England, Chris.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. So, all right. Well, thank you again, Harry.
We'll
talk to you later. You have a good one.
I'll speak soon. Have a good evening, guys.
You too.
Thank you.
See you. All right, Andy. Well, it's been a great show having both those guests on today. So I'm glad you got your technical difficulties fixed out. So I appreciate you coming on during your work. I know this was different pre-recording. It's a little bit different having to grab you at work today. So thanks for getting away there and sharing.
No worries. Yeah, no, thank you again for booking our guests. That was, this entire podcast experience has been a surreal thing. And then, to get to speak with, members of parliament and people that are helping getting in our favorite video game of all time is just absolutely amazing. But definitely very looking forward to the next time I'm sure we'll talk a few times before then, but it'll be even more surreal in a couple of weeks to get together in Carrickfergus, and definitely looking forward to it. And, we'll see, I guess, what the future holds.
Yeah. Well, everybody keep sending your emails, and thanks behind the scenes to Stephen Luker for producing the show and helping run it. So, and we'll see y'all next week, and just peace out.
Thanks, everyone.